Everybody needs to relax. No. The Atlanta Hawks do not need to move on from Trae Young. As a matter of fact, the Atlanta Hawks need Trae Young. And I'm going to get into all that. I'm going to give you my thoughts on this positive momentum that the Hawks have been playing without Trae Young, this positive winning that they've been going towards without Trae. I'm gonna give you guys my thoughts on that. I'm gonna give you guys my thoughts on what's also been transpiring with the team, things that I like, things that I've been concerned about, and things that I think people should be encouraged with when it comes to these Atlanta Hawks moving forward. But before we get started on that, I want to tell you guys to hit that subscribe button, like, comment, and share. Tell a friend, tell a family member, tell whoever to support my channel. Super Bowl. And yes, the Atlanta Hawks currently are 9-7, and they've been winning some games without Trae Young. You know, I think the Hawks are now 7-4 without Trae. They've had some nice little wins. They've had some kind of disappointing losses, but for the most part, you know, the Hawks have been more good than bad without Trae. And as a result of that, it's created a lot of discussions amongst Hawk fans, amongst the national media, basketball podcasters, basketball fans, anybody. You know, it's kind of been talked about. People are talking about it more and more, right? Should the Atlanta Hawks move on from Trae Young? Because the Hawks have been winning without Trae Young. They've looked different without Trae Young. You know, so, and as a result of that, you know, the thinking from some people is like, man, the Hawks are looking different. They're moving the ball. They're playing better defense. You know, they've had some nice wins. Man, maybe the Hawks are better without Trae. You know, maybe the Hawks should just move on from Trae. Build around Jalen Johnson. Build around Dyson Daniels, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Have some size. Play differently. Maybe this is better. I got news for people. Relax. 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 Because I'm here to tell you people, the Atlanta Hawks do not need to move on from Trae Young. At least not yet. Not yet. Now, maybe towards the end of the season, if things don't go well, you know, if the Hawks are in the play-in again, and the Hawks, when Trae gets back, maybe the Hawks are losing again, and depending on where that pick from the Pelicans lands, maybe we could have a different conversation. But not right now. Not at this very moment. No. The Atlanta Hawks do not need to move on from Trae Young. As a matter of fact, the Atlanta Hawks need Trae Young. They absolutely need Trae Young back on that floor. If they want to go, if they want to get to where they want to go this season, long term, whether they want to, even if they, you know, make the playoffs, if they want to do anything in the playoffs, if they get in the playoffs, they need Trae Young. And here's the thing. You know, this is a thing that's always been talked about when it comes to stars missing games. Like, we see this all the time. Like, whenever a star is out, you know, sometimes you see a team, they play better without that star. And all of a sudden, it creates debate. You know, as far as that, well, man, this team is playing different without their star, man. Maybe they should move on from them. You know, I remember 3 years ago, you know, when the Memphis Grizzlies was without Ja Morant. Right? And Ja Morant, I think, had an injury. And the Grizzlies, I think, won like 10 in a row. And they went 20-5 without Ja Morant. 20-5. And with Ja Morant, they went 34-21. You know, so I guess the winning percentage without Ja was better. But with Ja, they were winning. And my thing is this. Like, back when that was happening, I never remembered these conversations about whether the Grizzlies are better without Ja Morant. You know, it never happened, even though the Grizzlies were playing better without him. The conversation never got this loud. without Ja Morant back then when the Grizzlies were winning games without him, and they were winning 56 games and going to the playoffs. And so it's dawning on me. It's like, why is it a conversation now with Trae Young? Why can't the conversation just be that the Atlanta Hawks just acquired better players? The Hawks acquired Porzingis. The Hawks acquired Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Jalen Johnson has been fantastic. Dyson Daniels is providing the defense. Vit Krejci is all of a sudden on this positive streak. All of a sudden he's shooting the ball like Klay Thompson. He can't miss. Why can't the conversation be about that? Why is it now all of a sudden because the Hawks are winning games without Trae, all of a sudden, the Hawks don't need him? I don't get it. Now, is it because Trae Young is in a contract year and the Hawks have to make a decision as far as like how much they want to pay Trae? Do they want to pay him the max? They don't want to pay him less than the max? And maybe that has something to do with it. It probably does. But it's just something that I've just been wondering about. And like I remember even years ago, like back in 2012, 2013, Derrick Rose for the Chicago Bulls, he would routinely miss games. And guess what? Without him, the Chicago Bulls under Tom Thibodeau would win games without Derrick Rose. Back when Derrick Rose was at the peak of his powers, when he was the MVP. When he would miss games, the Bulls would win games without Derrick Rose. As a matter of fact, I think one year, I think it was in 2013, 14, I think they actually made the playoffs and were like a top 4 seed without Derrick Rose. And so it's just something to monitor. It's just something to think about. Like, we see teams all the time nowadays win games without their star players. I saw the San Antonio Spurs last night without Victor Wembanyama. Win games. I think they're now like 3-0. I think they won like 3 in a row without Victor Wembanyama when he doesn't play. Doesn't mean the Spurs are better without Victor. I mean, I don't think I don't think so. But they're winning. And so the Lakers without LeBron James. He's out. Luke and Lakers were winning, or I think the Lakers were like 10-4. And LeBron hasn't. I know LeBron played the other night, but I think the Lakers were like 10-4 before he came back. And so, like, we see these type of things happen all the time. With teams missing their star players. And so I feel like the Trae Young or the Hawks better without Trae conversation. I feel like the conversation should be as not necessarily not that the Hawks are better without Trae. The conversation should be is how will Trae Young, when he comes back, how will he fit in with this team, with how the Hawks have been playing without him? I think that's a conversation that needs to be had, and that's something I think people have to, monitor, because make no mistake about it, even though the Hawks have been winning some of these games without Trae. And like you look at the games that the Hawks have won. You look at the teams that the Hawks have played without Trae. Right? He got injured against the Brooklyn Nets. They ended up beating the Brooklyn Nets because, Brooklyn's one of the worst teams in the league. I think they're like the second worst team in the league. And so they play the Pacers without Trae. They blew them out. The Pacers have the third worst record. I think like third worst record in the league. And so you beat the Pacers, right? And then after you beat the Pacers, you beat the Orlando Magic. Nice win. Orlando's been up and down, but, good win. Solid home win. You beat them handily. Nice win, right? And then the next night, after you play Orlando, you play the Toronto Raptors. And this game is, if you want to look at the reason why Atlanta needs Trae, if people want to point to the argument for like why, if people want to be against of why Atlanta should move on from Trae, I'm just going to tell you that I disagree. And if you want to point to the reason why I would disagree with that, look at that Raptor game. I think the Hawks played them like 2 weeks ago. look at the second half of that game against the Toronto Raptors without Trae, and you would see that the Raptors in the second half of that game, because the Hawks were leading at halftime, in the second half, the Raptors clamped up their defense, and you saw the Hawks struggle to bring the ball up and down the floor. They were turning the ball over. They were struggling to get shots off. And the Hawks just could not generate any level of offense and creation in that game. And the Raptors just suffocated them defensively. And the Hawks lost, I think 109-97. And so, that happened. And so you lose to the Raptors. Now, then the following night, you play the Lakers. Now, that Laker game was kind of weird, because keep this in mind in that Laker game. Right? Not only did Trae Young didn't play, but Jalen Johnson didn't play. Nickeil Alexander-Walker didn't play. Kristaps Porzingis didn't play in that game against the Lakers. And on the Lakers end, it was Luka. I'm not Luka, but LeBron obviously was out, and Austin Reeves didn't play. So it was basically Luka and a bunch of guys versus whatever the Hawks had out there. So it's kind of hard to gauge, because not many guys on either team played, and yet the Hawks just won that game. And it felt like the Lakers just looked at who the Hawks had on the floor and were like, yeah, we got this. No Jalen, no Trae, no Nickeil Alexander-Walker, no Kristaps Porzingis. Who are these guys? And I bet the Lakers, that's how the Lakers kind of approached that game, and they just got their butts kicked because the Hawks came out with a lot of energy. It was a fun game. But I don't think that game is a game that you should gauge as to say, oh, the Hawks are better without Trae, because Trae Young wasn't the only guy that didn't play in that game. And so you win that game. You go on this West Coast road trip. You play the Clippers. You play the Kings. You play the Jazz. You play the Suns. Now let's look at those four teams. The Clippers. The Clippers have been a big disappointment. The Clippers are like 4-11. They're just bad. They're bad. They're struggling to find their way. You beat them. Okay. Solid win, but the Clippers are a bad team. You then go to Sacramento. And I don't know if people have been paying attention to the Sacramento Kings. The Sacramento Kings are like even a bigger mess than the Clippers. They are horrific, to the point that they lost to the Memphis Grizzlies last night, 137-96. I mean, they lost by 41 points. I mean, they got destroyed. And it's like the Kings are just getting their butts kicked every game by whoever. I mean, they're terrible. And so the Hawks beat them. Whatever. And so after that, you play the Utah Jazz. The Utah Jazz they're another bad team, even though they're kind of fun. Lauri Markkanen has been killing it. He's averaging nearly 30 a game. And that's the game that Jalen had his career game. He had 31 points. He had 18 rebounds, 14 assists, and 7 steals. Just an unreal dominating performance from Jalen Johnson. But also, Utah's a pretty bad team. And so you beat Utah. Then you play the Phoenix Suns. And this is where I will give the Hawks credit. Because the Phoenix Suns coming into that game, we're on a 5-game win streak. Right? And the Hawks went in their building. It was a tight game in the first half. And in the second half, Phoenix kind of blew the game open. They got up by 22 points. And it looked like, the Hawks are just going to fall on their faces. Oh, here we go. But to the Hawks' credit, in the fourth quarter, came back, scored 47 points in the fourth quarter, came back from a bit deficit, and Nickeil Alexander-Walker made a bunch of plays, and the Hawks won. They came back and won. And so that was so they beat Phoenix, and then obviously the next 2 games they lose to the Pistons. And again, you look at the Piston game, that's another game where that's one of those games where you look at it and just say, man, you wish Trae was out there, because you watch that game and it's just the Hawks again had one of those moments where they were just struggling to generate offense. The Pistons weren't allowing the Hawks to get out on a fast break, and you watch that game, the Hawks were down 22 in that game, and they came back and they got it to within 1 in the fourth quarter, and then guess what happens? The Hawks go on a 3 to 4 minute scoring drought, and the Pistons go on like a 10-0 run. And all of a sudden, the game kind of got a little bit out of reach, and the Hawks lost because the Hawks, through 3 to 4 minutes, was turning the ball over, struggling to generate good shots, and all of that, man. And and during those moments in a game like that against the Pistons, this is where Trae Young is missed. You need a guy that can generate good possessions on the offensive end of the floor. Say whatever you want about Trae Young. He might not be the best defender. He's small, and defensively he's kind of limited. And at times he might be a tad bit inefficient. And all of that. I get it, but at the end of the day, man, the pound for pound, Trae Young is one of the best playmakers in the league. And he's going to make life easier for his teammates. And every possession that he's on the floor, you're going to get a good shot. Every time you're on the floor with Trae Young, you're going to get a good shot, whether it's for his teammates or whether it's for himself. And with Trae Young, you need a guy in the half court that can generate a good shot and create for himself and for others. And that's the one thing that Trae Young does better than anybody on this team, is he's a guy that can in pick and roll, he can get a good shot for his teammate. Or if you need a bucket, if you need someone that can break a defense down and get a buck and make a tough shot, Trae Young can do that. He's capable of it. We saw it last year. Last year, Trae Young was tops in the league in clutch points and clutch percentage. You need a guy late in these games that can make big shots and big plays and big moments. And that's what Trae Young can do. And the other thing that I think Trae Young can do is he has that ability to draw fouls. If teams are tight or guarding them tight, worrying about his jump shot, worrying about him like getting a shot off, Trae Young has that ability to draw fouls. And that skill set within itself is very valuable if you're trying to generate good offensive possessions and at the end of the day have a chance to win games. And so Trae Young is incredibly valuable, to the Atlanta Hawks. Now look, I'll give the Hawks a ton of credit. And I said this on the last episode when I did a Hawks segment, when I talked about how they could survive not having Trae Young. And at that time, I thought that the Hawks had a chance to withstand not having Trae. And to the Hawks' credit, they've actually been a little better than I expected. Now, I think the schedule has been kind of kind to them, but the Hawks do deserve credit for playing as well as they have without Trae. Like, you look at this stretch again, you look at the stretch without Trae Young, they're 7-4 without him. And if you look at the statistics, they're 12th in offense without Trae. They're 12th in offensive rating. They've been 11th in defensive rating. Their net rating is 10th. And so that's very solid. That's pretty good without your best player. Or maybe some might say Jalen Johnson's their best player or whatever. But like that's very good without arguably your best player. The fact that, you're 7-4 and you're like borderline top 10 in the offensive and defensive statistics. And so that's very encouraging. But here's the concerning factor when you don't have Trae Young. Despite the fact that the Hawks are 12th in offense, 11th in defense, and have a top 10 net rating, they're third worst in the NBA over this stretch in turnover rate, which means they're turning the ball over at the third highest rate in the league over this stretch. They are struggling taking care of the basketball. And part of it is you just have a bunch of guys that, that they've had issues like dribbling the ball, when teams are guarding them tight. They're losing their handle. Like I've seen Dyson Daniels, he's been losing the ball, because teams are just pressuring his handle. So he's been coughing up the ball. Jalen Johnson at times has been coughing up the ball because teams are guarding him tight. Nickeil Alexander-Walker has been coughing up the ball. And so when you have a guy like Trae Young, he can alleviate all that pressure from his teammates because the ball is going to be in his hands, and he's the guy that's going to be making decisions on the floor, and he's going to take pressure off of his teammates. And so the turnovers, even though the Hawks have been, on a positive streak here, the turnovers have been a problem for this team without Trae. And so again, man, look, if this team wants to make real noise in the Eastern Conference or in the playoffs, the Trae-less Hawks is not going to get it. Is not going to cut it. They'll win games. They'll be pretty good. They could have a winning record if Trae is not on this team. That could happen. But where are you going? The fact remains when it comes to these Hawks, man, is if this team wants to go far, and have a legit record in the Eastern Conference, get out of the play-in. If the Hawks want to make some noise in the playoffs, you're going to need Trae Young. You just will. And look, as I want to point this out, man. I think the Hawks without Trae they've done a nice job of creating an identity of playing high-level defense and forcing turnovers and getting out on a break. The one thing that the Hawks have built their name off of this season is they're going to get easy fast break points. That's how they have to play. They have to force turnovers, which is something that the Hawks have routinely done. They're top 5 in the league in forcing turnovers, and they got to get out. They got to get out on a break and run and get fast break points and get and run and get themselves open for threes and not make this a half court game. The Hawks have been committed to doing that, and it's worked into the tune of them winning 7 out of their last 11 games without Trae Young. It's worked. They have that identity of playing fast and forcing turnovers and getting out in the open court. It's worked. Jalen Johnson is an unbelievable athlete. Maybe one of the best downhill drivers in the league outside of Giannis. Just unbelievable. Zachary Richey, for a young dude, he can get out on the break and finish and dunk and run the break and finish. Right? Nickeil Alexander-Walker can get out on the break and make something happen. Dyson Daniels can get out on the break and make something happen. And so this team's a good open court team. Like we seen Vik Krejci hit open threes out on the break. Luke Kennard hitting open threes on the break. And so the Hawks have a nice little style of play without Trae. And they're doing a nice job of cutting and moving the ball and passing and all of that stuff. It's nice. You still need Trae Young when the money's on the table, when games get tight, when it's time to execute down the stretch of these games. Like I said, against the Pistons, the Atlanta Hawks had a chance to win that game. They had a chance. But down the stretch of that game, no one could make a play because Trae Young wasn't there. Against a couple of weeks ago against the Toronto Raptors, the Hawks, there was a tight game in the fourth quarter, and the Hawks went through an offensive drought. The Hawks needed Trae Young in that moment. They needed him when the offense was bogging down, and no one was there to make anything happen. The Atlanta Hawks needed Trae Young. Now, look, you give them credit for winning some of these games against some of these, mediocre to bad teams. They deserve they deserve a ton of credit for that. But make no mistake about it, man. This team needs Trae Young. They need him. And look, it's just kind of where it is. And look, you look at the Hawks schedule coming up. The schedule is getting a little easier. They got the Pelicans on Saturday, and then you got the Charlotte Hornets on Sunday, and then you got the Washington Wizards. So those are 3 winnable games. I think they have a game against the Wizards again, and so their schedule's a little doable, and Trae Young should be back in the next couple of weeks or so. And so I'm still optimistic that the Hawks are going to be able to win some more of these games. And ideally, when Trae does come back, the Hawks are like 5 or 6 games over 500. That way you have a nice little cushion for yourself so you can incorporate Trae Young back into the lineup, and that you can work out some kinks while you still have a positive record. And so I think that's the ideal pathway. And I think the Hawks are on that path of like continuing to win some of these games. And so I think that's kind of where it is without Trae. But again, man, make no mistake about it. The Atlanta Hawks need Trae Young. They do, man. And I think for the people that are just like, Atlanta should move off of Trae Young because they're winning all these games and all this stuff, like it's foolish talk. It's foolish. The Hawks need to see Trae Young with this group. Let's see how Trae Young meshes with this group. Let's see how Trae Young meshes with Jalen Johnson. Let's see how Trae Young meshes with Dyson Daniels and Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Porzingis and Onyeka Okongwu and Risha Shea and these guys. Because I think this team has real potential. I still think this team has a lot of potential to make some noise in the Eastern Conference. I do. I really do. I like the talent that this team has. And it's premature to just judge Trae just based off of 4 games or so when the team went 1-3 and he's trying to incorporate his teammates. And even in a couple of those games that the Hawks lost, a few of the key teammates didn't even play. Like you look at the game against OKC. I think Jalen missed the game. Or Porzingis and Risha Shea didn't play in that game. Right? And so I'm just saying. And so I think it's a little bit premature on the Trae Young front. Now, with that out of the way, I want to give you guys my other thoughts on what I've been liking about this team and some concerns about the Atlanta Hawks and what I've been seeing. On a positive note, when I look at the Atlanta Hawks, I mentioned Jalen Johnson. Hey, man, Jalen Johnson has been balling. He's been balling. You're talking about a guy that's averaging 22 points, 9 rebounds, 6 assists on 58% shooting, on 40% from 3. He has a 66% true shooting. Like Jalen Johnson, even without Trae, has been unbelievably efficient. And you're watching him, and he's just, you look at the way he's been moving on the court, man. He's just confident, man. He just got a swagger about himself, man. The guy, we all know he's a monster on the fast break. And he can get to the rack and all of that, but his finishing through traffic has been better. I like how he's been finishing through contact. He's bullying his way through the basket. I've been really impressed with that. His jump shot has been really coming along. He's shooting the ball with confidence. Like I said, he's shooting 40% from 3 on 3 attempts a game. Like, it's pretty good. And so the shooting, I think, has been highly impressive. The playmaking, the open court passing has been impressive. The ability to grab and go and get to the cup has been impressive. He's even shown some flashes of creating from the mid post. I'm very pleased with what I've seen out of Jalen. Now, I will say this regarding Jalen. I think the defense, he's been a little spotty lately. I want to see him lock in on defense. He's getting the steals. Credit where credit is due on Jalen. He is getting the steals. Like he had 7 steals against the Utah Jazz the other night. He's averaging about 1.5 steals a game this season. So the steals are there, but I still want to see some consistency out of Jalen. But even despite all that, this version of Jalen Johnson, no brainer, should be an all-star. Absolute all-star. And if he keeps playing this way and the Hawks keep winning, I expect Jalen Johnson to be an all-star. And so I want to give a shout out to Jalen Johnson. Another guy I want to give a shout out is Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I didn't see this coming from Nickeil Alexander-Walker. Like, I'm gonna be honest. Like, I did not see this offensive jump from Nickeil. Like, this is a guy that averaged 9 points a game in Minnesota. I thought he was going to come in and just do similar. Like, he'll play his role, hit shots, play defense. He'll average around maybe like 10 points a game or something. That was kind of my expectation. The guy's averaging 19 points a game on 47% shooting and 35% from three on over 60% from true shooting. Like, shout out Nickeil Alexander-Walker. I mean, he's getting to the basket. He's finishing with his right and left hand, so he's a good finisher at the basket. He has a nice little mid-range game. His 3-point shot's been a little struggling, but against the Spurs the other night, like 8 for 10 from three, he was cooking. Like, he was cooking something against the Spurs, man. And you add the offensive improvement in the leap that Nickeil Alexander-Walker has made on offense, along with what he's already providing on defense. Like, the defense has been as advertised. Like, he's getting the steals. He's locking down on the perimeter. I mean, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it, man. Nickeil Alexander-Walker is the best Atlanta Hawks free agent signing since Paul Millsap. Like, that's how good Nickeil Alexander-Walker's been for the Hawks, man. Like, he is the best free agent signing since Paul Millsap. The guy's making 4 years, $62 million. I mean, just a bargain. For this production, a guy that's averaging nearly 20 a game, and he's making $15 million per season, and the Hawks are going to have him for, after this season, for 3 more seasons after this one? I mean, shout out Ansi Salah for the Nickeil Alexander-Walker signing. He's been tremendous. Absolute tremendous. And I think he's a guy that should be in the conversation for most improved player. You know, and so I want to shout out Nickeil Alexander-Walker. He's been tremendous. Onyeka Okongwu, another guy that I want to shout out. Look, man, this might be a controversial opinion. I think Onyeka Okongwu's the best center on the team. With all due respect to Kristaps Porzingis, Onyeka, to me, is still the best center on the team. And Onyeka Okongwu's been awesome. Like, he's turning himself into a legit stretch big. This guy's averaging 16 points a game, and he's shooting over 50% from the field, and he's shooting 40% from three on 4 attempts a game. Like, this is real, folks. Onyeka Okongwu, he's becoming a legit 3-point shooter. And we all know he's a good finisher around the rim. We all know he's becoming a pretty good passer. Just a super versatile big man. Defensively, he switches well. He has nice hands. I've liked what I've seen from him on that side of the ball. Onyeka Okongwu's been awesome. Just continuing his play from the second half of last season when he was a starter. And I know he comes off the bench from time to time when Porzingis is playing, but Onyeka's been tremendous, man. Just absolute tremendous season out of Onyeka Okongwu. And so I want to shout him out, man. I think Onyeka Okongwu, Nickeil Alexander-Walker, Jalen Johnson, all of them been tremendous. And so I want to shout those 3 out, man. Those guys are getting the job done. And, you know, I'm excited to see how Trae Young is going to look with those 3 guys, man, because I'm excited, man. So I want to shout out those guys. Now, the things that I'm concerned about with the Hawks is, number one, I love Quinn Snyder. I've defended Quinn Snyder. I think Quinn Snyder is still a good coach. So I support Quinn Snyder. But Quinn Snyder, hear me out on this, coach. Hear me out. Can you please stop it with the Vit Krejci, Luke Kennard, Keaton Wallace 3-guard lineups, please? Can we stop it? Because they ain't working, coach. The Hawks, every time the Quinn Snyder puts those 3 out on the floor at the same time, the Hawks are getting killed. It feels like every time Vit Krejci, Luke Kennard, and Keaton Wallace are out on the floor together, it's like the opposing team goes on like a 15-2 run. Like, and it happened last night against the Spurs. Like, coach, Quinn Snyder, please, can we eliminate the Vit Krejci, Luke Kennard, Keaton Wallace lineups? Like, please, just pretty, please. I'm begging you, coach. I'm begging you, Quinn Snyder. Look, I like you, Quinn Snyder. I do. I think you're a good coach. I like how how the offensive system that you have. It seems like the players that are on the team love playing for you. You do a nice job of encouraging the team. You know, the team is mostly prepared on most games. I got it, coach. Just eliminate the V. Krejci, Luke Kennard, Keaton Wallace, 3-guard lineups. Just please. Keaton Wallace is a nice story. He's a nice story. I get it. He's made his way to the NBA. He's worked hard. I get it. I like it. It's a nice story. The guy shouldn't be playing regular rotation minutes. He just shouldn't be. V. Krejci and Luke Kennard, I can understand. I understand it. Like, V. Krejci on his road trip was shooting the ball like Klay Thompson. Okay, he was killing it. And Luke Kennard he's been a rotation player who can also shoot the ball and pass a little bit as well. So I get it, but I don't want to see Keaton Wallace. Like, just pair V. Krejci and Luke Kennard with like Dyson Daniels or Nickeil Alexander-Walker, just so you can have a real like defender on the team on the floor when those two play. Because like I said, man, it just feels like when those three on the court together, V. Krejci, Luke Kennard, and Keaton Wallace, it's like the Hawks just get killed. And I want better. Like I want to see Quentin Snyder make that adjustment. Which brings me to the last point I'm going to make about the other concern I have about this team. Dyson Daniels. Look, man, I love me some Dyson Daniels. I've done multiple YouTube segments on Dyson Daniels. I love my Australian brother. I love me some Dyson Daniels. Defensively, he's still getting the job done. Offensively, I'm getting concerned. I'm getting concerned about Dyson Daniels. The guy is averaging 8 points a game. 8 points a game. And like I feel like the offense is regressing a little bit from Dyson Daniels. The aggression is not there. He's passing up He's passing up open 3-point shots. When he's taking 3-point shots, the few times he's taking them, he's missing them badly. You know, he's turning the ball over. Like I said, the Hawks they've been turning the ball over at a pretty high clip. You know, without Trae. Dyson Daniels has become a pretty big part of that problem. Like, he's getting stripped on his drives. You know, even earlier in the year, he was missing layups. Even though I think that's kind of improved a little bit. But the offensive progression from Dyson Daniels is concerning to me. Like, I'm not liking what I'm seeing from Dyson Daniels on offense. Like, I'm really not. I'm kind of concerned. Like, he's becoming a liability on offense. He's looking like the guy he was with the Pelicans on offense right now, man. He's not playing with confidence. And I want to see him improve on that, man, and get better, because I'm a little worried, man. I'm a little worried about Dyson Daniels on offense. Like, I love my guy. I love him. I'm glad Atlanta extended him. But I'm kind of concerned about the offense. And I think the other thing I think Atlanta's got to clean up, the rebounding. The defensive rebounding's also got to get better. They're getting killed on the glass on most games too. And so they got to clean that up. Yeah, man, that's kind of where I'm at, man. And also, I want to bring this up too, from the Atlanta Hawks perspective. As y'all guys know, the Atlanta Hawks did a draft night trade against the New Orleans Pelicans. All right, you know, the Pelicans. For those of y'all that don't remember, the Pelicans traded the 23rd pick and next year's unprotected 2026 pick to the Hawks for the Pelicans to move up to 13 and for them to take Derek Queen. Now, look, I love me some Derek Queen. I loved them in that draft, and I got to tell you, that man has been balling for the Pelicans lately. He had 30 points the other night against Nikola Jokic and the Nuggets. So he's been balling. But they gave up that 22nd. They gave up the 2026 pick to the Hawks. And I don't know if y'all been looking at the Pelicans. They're 2-13. And they have the second worst record in the NBA. And they have the worst record in the Western Conference. You know what that means? that means that there's a high probability that the Pelicans are going to be giving up a top 3 pick to the Atlanta Hawks. And they got Derek Queen, and he's been hooping. And credit to Derek Queen. But that trade still ain't looking too great for the Pelicans if they give up that high of a pick. Especially considering the fact that the Pelicans could have added some protections on that pick. But that's their problem. Shout out to Joe Dumars. But from the Hawks' perspective, the Hawks could be looking at a top 3 pick in this upcoming draft. Which, ladies and gentlemen, I'm fantasizing. I'm smiling about the thought, about the possibility of the Atlanta Hawks ending up with A.J. DeBouncer from BYU or Daryl Peterson from Kansas. Because I'm here to tell you people, and I'm gonna bring this up a few times whenever I do an Atlanta Hawk YouTube segment. I'm gonna bring this up, but I'm gonna let it all out there. All right. If the Atlanta Hawks somehow get a top 2 pick by winning the lottery via that Pelicans pick, and the Atlanta Hawks end up looking at Daryl Peterson or A.J. DeBouncer, if the Atlanta Hawks get one of them 2 guys, and you pairing A.J. DeBouncer or Daryl Peterson with Jalen Johnson and Onyeka Okongwu and Dyson Daniels and Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Zachary Richardson and Trae Young, or even if the Hawks somehow move on from Trae Young in about 2 years or so, whatever happens. Preferably, I would prefer to keep Trae. But if the Atlanta Hawks end up with Daryl Peterson or A.J. DeBouncer, and you're pairing them with Jalen Johnson and Onyeka Okongwu and Dyson Daniels and Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Zachary Richardson and Trae Young, and you pair A.J. DeBouncer and Daryl Peterson with that crew, I got news for people. The Atlanta Hawks will win an NBA championship. And an NBA championship will be coming to Atlanta, Georgia, if the Atlanta Hawks end up with A.J. DeBouncer or Daryl Peterson. Make no mistake about that, because them 2 dudes are the real deal. I saw A.J. DeBouncer last week when they played UConn, and A.J. DeBouncer went to work with the footwork and drive and his ability to drive and create his own shot and just take over that game. A.J. DeBouncer is the real deal. The absolute real deal. And if there's one thing that's kind of missing on this Atlanta Hawk roster, is they need a guy, specifically at the wing position, at the 2-3 spot. Someone that can just get their own shot and just take over a game and score the basketball. And make something happen in the half court. That's the one thing that's missing on this roster. It's just that score from the wing, small forward, shooting guard position. They need that score. And I can't tell you guys, man. I'm every day I'm fantasizing at the thought of A.J. DeBouncer or Daryl Peterson being an Atlanta Hawk and the Hawks winning the lottery, getting a top 2 pick via that Pelicans pick. It would be the greatest day in Atlanta Hawk history if Atlanta ended up with A.J. DeBouncer or Daryl Peterson, and they end up getting one of them 2 dudes, man, with that Pelicans pick. It would be gorgeous. And it's looking like it's a real possibility that it could happen because the Pelicans ain't looking good. They stink. They losing. And I'm gonna keep that in mind. And I'm gonna keep tabs on the Pelicans. Because hey man, it's beautiful. It's a beautiful time to be a Hawk fan right now. But look, man, that's all I have, man. And I'm gonna say it again, man. Like all these Trae Young naysayers and critics, look, man, make no mistake about it. The Atlanta Hawks don't let this little nice positive streak fool y'all. The Atlanta Hawks absolutely need Trae Young. They need him, and I think for Trae Young, this is an opportunity for Trae Young. This is an opportunity for him to. This is a come to Jesus moment for Trae Young. Like, you seen how the Hawks has been playing without you. This team has talent. Just fit in, buy in. And if the best version of Trae Young can fit in with this current Hawks group, I think this Atlanta Hawks team can do some special things, man. The East is wide open. I know Detroit's been rolling. To the Toronto Raptors has been a nice little surprise. I get it. The Knicks and the Cavs are still there. I get it. The Atlanta Hawks can beat all those teams if we can get the best version of Trae Young. And Trae Young can fit in with Jalen and Onyeka and Dyson and Kristaps and Nikhil and the rest of the team, man. Like, it's all on Trae Young, man. It's all on Trae. And I believe it. And I believe in Trae. I'm still there. I'm still a believer in Trae Young, that he can fit right into this group and this team can win games without him. The defense, the Hawks have the defensive infrastructure to cover for Trae. And offensively, with the emergence of Nickeil Alexander-Walker and Jalen and Onyeka, like, we can make something happen. I think this team can make something happen. And so that's all I have. And hey, man, go Hawks!